and gentlemen, here we go.
Okay, let's shift gears here a little, and let's go into the meat of what the fuck and the pandemic. Like, okay, so this so this one obviously big for me and my trip, but something that I'm interested to share with you guys today is that Jesse started up during pandemic, during quarantine, during all this shit, right? So, you know, I was training up here in Asheville, and right as I was leaving, I was going back to see my folks. He was just getting started. So that was what, late March?
Yeah, I think it was April.
Okay,
It was
April.
Yeah, mid-April.
Mid-April, and like, you know,
or early April. Yeah, whenever you right before you left.
Okay, and you were just getting started. So normally I'm asking people, I'm like, oh, how's it been since the shutdown? Well, fuck that. Like, how'd you do it? How'd it go, and how are you feeling now?
Dude, honestly, so it's maybe a shocker to whoever sees, certain people who see this, but I was actually working on it for a while, actually about this time last year. And it was just kind of on the down low. I had a partner who kind of pushed me, and he was like, look, man, I've got a spot, you know, we can start doing, we can just open up today and do stuff over here, you know, and I'll be the backer, I'll put on all the money and get the mats and this and that. And he did a really good job by putting together a spot really quickly. And it kind of fell through with him, but then I was like, you know, I had done so much, and it kind of going before that, you know, in leading up to that, I was always like, oh, if I just had $100,000, I could start this good. If I just had $10,000, I could do this. And it was like, well, fuck, if I just had $1,000, I could do this. And it was like, once he came along, it was like, well, I could do Instagram, that's free. YouTube, you know, make an email address, you know, like make up a fake, you know, the DBA was only 25, but I ended up getting the LLC, that's 125. But it, like, I started realizing I could do a lot with less than $500. And even like finding wholesalers, like I had the DBA, I had a business name, so I just gave them that name, even though it had nothing to do with Muay Thai. I just gave them that, and it was my end to get wholesalers and wholesale accounts. So I was like, shit, dude. And I'm like, I started realizing I'm doing a lot of this stuff with no money.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, so there is literally no excuse. Like, you just get in there and start doing this shit. So I was like, little by little, just piecing things together, getting business cards, getting a logo, you know, stuff like that. And then, you know, I was getting some pushback with my old employer. Like, you know, more and more I started to realize, like, this could be a real thing. Mm-hmm. You know, I started kind of being my own person, like, and not really, you know, it's kind of just teaching the way I wanted to teach and how I've seen other Muay Thai gyms do it, and kind of, you know, like I was going back before, like taking little bits from everybody and kind of making my own. And that's when I like started getting the pushback, and like, oh, you know, you need to teach for us. You're teaching for yourself. You're not really. You don't seem like you want to be a part of our team. And it was like in the back of my mind, I'm like, you know, I want this. I want to be a coach, but I want to be my coach.
Gotcha.
So then when the whole pandemic shit happened, you know, it was just like, I didn't know if they were even going to live through it.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, absolutely. Like, dude, no one knew it was going to
Yeah, and I was like, you know, I was like, well, maybe I should just start my shit. And it was like, well, I don't know if mine's going to work. And I was like, you know what? I still want to train, and I still need some work. And I was like, so I started telling people, hey, you know, come over to my house and we'll just do some free training or free privates, whatever, just so I can work and hold pads. Then it was like, oh, you know, a couple other people realized I was doing that. Like, hey, when can I come over? And I was like, well, let's just meet in a centralized location. So we picked a park. And then it was like, well, shoot, you know, maybe I should start advertising this. Yeah. So I was like, hey, Muay Thai in the park, you know. Yeah. Started picking times, when can you be here? And then, so we just went to that. And then I was like, all right, you know, I was like, shit, people want to do this. So let me just, again, behind the scenes, like get the LLC, get this, get that, you know, get my logo on a business card, get a website name. It was like, it was like, oh shit, this is really working. Like, I'm making T-shirts, and I was like, oh fuck, you know. And then it was like, all right, you know, I need to find a spot. And I was like, you know, going around all these realtors, and they're like, yeah, you know, you don't have the capital, you don't have this, you don't have that. And I'm like, dude, is anybody? Like you have, I'm like, I've been looking at your spot for the last 6 months, no one's been in there. Like, when are you going to put somebody in there? You know? But I think having that mindset, like, I've got to have a place, like, not that, it's not that I got to, like, I'm going to. Like, I'm going to have a spot, and I'm going to look around like I have the money for it. I'm going to look around like I can do this today. Mm-hmm. And then one night a guy was like, "Hey, do you train Muay Thai?" And I was like, you know, so I never really, I never really made it a real business, like, because I was working on public grounds, so I never really asked for monetary, you know, compensation.
Right.
It was just like, just come out and train for free, and the whole free thing that really pissed some people off. And I heard a lot of people like, "Oh, it's bad for business and this and that." I'm like, I'm training, you know, and sometimes
I went to the park and trained with my friends during the quarantine.
Yeah, I know, but I guess because I really was kind of taking the reins and being like, yeah, you know, let's do this, let's do that. So I was kind of making it like a class setting, and you know, it was organized.
I mean, you were a coach before. I get it.
Yeah. So, but you know, the guy came and he's like, "Hey, you know, no, are you teaching Muay Thai?" I was like, "Who's asking?" And he's like, "Yeah, I've got a spot. I want to do, you know, some stand up. You know, I've got the mat space. You know, you can come and train. You can do things." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I do this. This is what I want to do. You know, I've already got the LSE, this and that. I've done all this stuff, and I've got some people that, you know, willing to follow me wherever I go." He's like, "Let's make this happen." I was like, "Well, hell yeah." So, but I mean, I did start, like, it technically was official by June. So in the middle of, it was like right when everybody was kind of being relaxed, not really as far as gyms. But then he asked me at the end of August, and then by the beginning of September, when North Carolina said, "Okay, you know, gyms are good to go," you know, it was just prime time. Like, it just worked out perfectly, and it was like the very first week that it was like, all right, you know, gyms could be open. I had already had scheduled a class, and I was like, this is perfect. So it was like, it just all worked up. It just all worked together. So the fact that, you know, just did what I could, you know, and not even like what pandemic, like other than like some people are like, "I don't know if I want to come out and train," but like, we're outdoors. We're not going to do any clinch. You know, we'll stick to pads, you know, and stuff like that. We'll try to keep it as safe as possible. And a lot of people didn't even care about it. But I mean, there's some people like, "What are you going to do about COVID?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you don't have to come in. Don't worry about it."
All right, yeah, you know, we all got our approach.